Professor Ubier's house.
Looks pretty creepy. I'd been away from Paris and hadn't seen Nico for nearly 6 months. I wanted to celebrate our reunion, but she had other plans. An appointment with an archaeologist. Something to do with a Mayan stone she came across while researching a story. The guy who answered the door didn't look much like an archaeologist to me. I had a bad feeling about this. There were only 3 things I didn't like about spiders. The way they looked, the way they moved, and the fact that they lived on the same planet as me. This spider was big, mean, and hairy, and definitely not a native of Europe. I glanced over the books, vaguely hoping to find a copy of How to Deal with Poisonous Spiders While Tied to a Chair. No such luck. But I noticed one corner of the bookcase was supported by a loose block of wood. The bookcase was too big and heavy to move. The block of wood had been used to replace the original foot of the bookcase. Maybe I'd been a little heavy-handed, but it was a question of survival. Of course, I was still tied to a chair in a burning house with no means of escape. Yellow pus was seeping from below the bookcase. That spider was very squashed. I wasn't touching that spider goo. I thought that I ought to free myself before examining the furniture. The bookcase had been anchored to the wall by a protruding metal bracket. It had sheared off as the bookcase had fallen, leaving a jagged edge. With one mighty bound, our hero was free. Now, I had to deal with that fire. The rope was shredded and no possible use to me. It was the chair I'd been tied to. I had no time to sit around. Even if I had the time, I wouldn't be able to get to the books beneath the heavy case. The bookcase had fallen on its front, making it impossible to reach the books inside. Ubier and his wife, I guess. Nice couple. The photograph wasn't any use to me. It was an oddly designed candle holder with a coil of metal shaped like a snake. Highly artistic, but of very little practical use. The bureau had a sliding lid. Inside, I found a bottle of tequila. It was a half bottle of extra strong Mexican tequila. Just what I needed under the circumstances. Normally, I didn't drink strong spirits, but today was far from normal. Ew. Disgusting. Not only did the tequila burn like hell, I just managed to stop myself from swallowing the worm. What looked like a little shriveled wiener lay on the carpet. Thankfully, it was only the worm from the tequila bottle. Well, I wasn't going to eat it, but life had taught me one thing. No matter how unlikely it seems, the strangest objects have their uses. Even tequila worms. It was that itsy-bitsy tequila worm. I really must remember to take it out of my pants before I send them to the laundry. I'd drunk enough of that. It was a half bottle of tequila. It was a closed drawer. In the drawer was a small decorated pot. The pot contained a key. It looked like a house key. It was a closed drawer. There was nothing else in the drawer. I had no further use for the bracket. The projecting bracket had served its purpose. There was nothing else I could do with it. It was a needle-sharp dart with a flight of green and yellow feathers. That dart was sharper than a mosquito's business end, but this didn't deter me from getting it anyway. It was the poisoned dart which had stunned Nico. I'd never known anything keep her quiet so effectively. It was Nico's bag. It was a stylish little canvas number containing a lipstick, a handwritten note, and a pair of nylon panties with a large love heart emblazoned across the front. It occurred to me that Nico's tastes must have really changed while I was away. Well, they could be useful. It was Nico's lipstick. It wasn't my color, and it reminded me of clowns. I guess I had no business reading the note, but I figured it might give me a clue to what Nico was involved in. It was from André Labanau, the history student Nico had known at college. The letter was sentimental mush, and revealed that the exotic lingerie, as he called it, was a gift from him. It gave his telephone number. Labanau figured himself as a rival for Nico's affections, but I couldn't believe that that creep was in the running. It was a pair of red, lace-trimmed panties decorated with a large black satin heart. It was Nico's bag. I'd already ransacked Nico's handbag, and besides which, the color didn't suit me. The bars attached to the window would prevent anyone getting in. They also stopped me from getting out. I wasn't going to get through those sturdy bars. This window had bars too. The room was a prison. I wasn't going to get through those sturdy bars. It was the box that spider had crawled from. I wasn't going to touch the box after that spider had been inside it. It was a soda fountain, perfect for mixing with drinks or squirting at clowns. There was no pressure in the siphon. I guess it was out of gas. The fire had taken hold and ignited part of the polished wooden floorboards. I racked my brains to think of a way to improvise a fire extinguisher. If only I'd stopped for a coffee at the airport. The door blocked my only means of escape. The door blocked my... In the cabinet's wooden door was a very small keyhole. The cabinet was locked. The key was way too large to fit into that tiny keyhole. As I released the lock, something blew the doors open. It was a small cylinder which seemed to have exploded. I couldn't think of a use for a burst cylinder. It was a small metal cylinder. That cylinder was hot. I couldn't pick it up with my bare hands. The panties I'd found in Nico's bag were just what I needed to wrap around the hot cylinder. It was a small metal cylinder with a valve at one end. The cylinder gave out a faint hiss as the valve opened. Huh? Now I had one primed up and ready to use extinguisher. With a well-aimed squirt of the soda fountain, our unshakable hero saved the day. Now it was time to start looking for Nico. It was a soda fountain, perfect for mixing with drinks or squirting at clowns. The door blocked. I wasn't going to burn myself on that red-hot doorknob, and it wasn't the time for subtlety. The doorway led to the stairs in the entrance hall. The stairs led to the first floor room. The front door was made of hard wood, supported by a sturdy frame. The door led to some other part of Aubier's mansion. It was a folded clipping taken from a newspaper. I'd found a piece of newspaper folded in two. It referred to a forthcoming eclipse of the sun. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be visible from Europe. The best place to view the eclipse would be Mexico. It was Aubier's telephone. Much as I disliked him, Labano might be my only hope of finding Nico. Hi, Andre?
Who is this?
It's George Stobart, Nico's boyfriend.
Don't you mean ex-boyfriend?
Look, I didn't call you just to pick a fight. I need to talk to you about Nico.
Can't you accept she's just not interested in you?
Listen, Andre, we need to talk. Nico's life depends on it.
Okay. You remember the cafe at Montfaucon?
Sure. Andre? You'd better show, you creep. I felt an irrational urge to wipe my ear. There was no one else I wanted to call. It was the newspaper clipping referring to the imminent eclipse. Wrapped inside it was another small piece of paper. It was a bank statement for Aubier's account from an automatic telling machine. The last 5 withdrawals were for large amounts, and all made in Marseille. It was Aubier's bank statement. It was locked. The house key didn't fit this lock. The tiny point was only of use for picking small locks. The door was locked. I didn't fancy my chances of kicking this door down. The tiny point... I unlocked the door. I wasn't looking forward to meeting Labano again, but he was my only link with Nico. There was no sign of Labano when I got to the cafe. I decided to order a coffee and wait for him. The street led back to the center of Paris. The man at the next table looked somehow familiar. It was a small silver flask from which the man was topping up his glass. The waiter's stained and crumpled clothes looked as if they'd been slept in. I decided not to bother with a meal. It was too hot to sit inside the cafe. Besides, I might miss Labano. I had no place to go except back to Ubier's house. Besides, I didn't want to miss Labano, so I decided to sit tight and wait. I had no desire to go down into the sewers. I had no desire to go down. It was too hot to sit. I couldn't snatch the man's flask while he was looking. Oh, garçon. He ignored me. I'm sure it was deliberate. Pardon me, but don't I know you?
Huh?
You were here the day I found the catacombs.
I was? Ah, yes. I remember you.
Yeah. Are you still in the police force?
No, not anymore. I'm a man of leisure. And what brings you back to Paris?
My girlfriend.
What it is to be young and in love. Can you share a bottle of wine with me?
Hey, listen, I'd love to, but I need to keep a clear head.
So my company isn't good enough for you.
Why did you leave the police?
I was forced to retire. The golden handshake. Only in my case, it was more copper than gold.
How come?
I was made a scapegoat to cover up the department's inefficiencies.
Have you ever heard of a Professor Hubier?
No, monsieur. I don't recall the name.
Well, apparently he's an expert on Mayan art and history.
A little out of my field of experience, monsieur. If he'd been a serial killer or a sodomite, I might have been able to help.
What's that you're drinking?
It's wine.
What do you make of this dart?
I remember a case where the victim was killed with just such a device. The poison acted in seconds, causing his body to swell up like an inflatable life raft.
What do you make of this news cutting?
Orphanage supplied fast food chain?
No, it's the article above that.
Oh! Total eclipse of the sun. Well, that's very dull in comparison. I don't know anything about eclipses.
Tell me what you make of this note.
From my years of experience, I gained a pretty good insight into handwriting. I'd say that note was written by a compulsive, obsessive type with an Oedipus complex.
Hey, you got just about everything apart from the ponytail. Hey, you.
Quoi?
I'd like a cup of coffee if you don't mind.
When I finish serving this gentleman.
The man was still looking. He wouldn't have wanted that.
Un café.
Thanks. What does that guy keep pouring out of this flask?
Absinthe.
Absinthe? I thought that was highly dangerous and outlawed in France.
It is. Don't look at me, I didn't sell it to him.
Do you know a guy called André Lobineau?
Oui, I know him. What of it?
I'm supposed to meet him here. Did I miss him?
No, I have not seen him today.
Have you heard of Professor Oubier?
Oui. He married that actress, the little dachshund. They used to come here. The nutty professor and the movie star.
If Oubier's wife was a movie star, how come I never heard of her?
She was big in France. The world doesn't stop at Hollywood. Her stage name was Carol Climax. She died in suspicious circumstances.
How did Oubier's wife die?
I heard he shot her.
And got away with it?
He had a good lawyer and a watertight alibi.
Why would an eminent public figure like Oubier risk everything for murder?
He wouldn't be the first, would he? Besides, people like him always get off.
Do you know that man over there?
I should think so. He's a regular customer.
Look at this, a poison dart.
Ah oui, sure.
It's the real thing. Knocked my girlfriend out cold in a matter of seconds.
Romantic. Sounds like a real close relationship you have going.
That's all.
Thank you.
Well, this is a surprise, Georgie.
I wouldn't normally call you. But Nico's in trouble, Andre. Deep trouble. You have to help me find her.
What? What have you dragged her into this time?
It was you that recommended Professor Oubier as an expert on Mayan art. Now his butler has kidnapped her, and he tried to kill me.
Every time she gets involved with you, there is trouble. Walking out on her was the best thing you could do.
My father was dying, damn it. I had no choice.
Well, she soon recovered once she went back to her old friends.
Drop it, Andre. Right now, Nico's in danger, and we have to work together.
So, how can I help?
Nico needed to speak to Oubier about a stone.
Oh, you mean this stone?
So that's what all the trouble's about.
Precisely. Nicole told me to guard it with my life.
Oh, it's worth more than that, surely.
Oh, very funny.
What's funny is that your life really is on the line.
What are you talking about?
The stone is a Mayan artifact, dummy. And the guy who kidnapped Nico was from Central America. It was the stone they were after.
Oh my god, you mean I could be in danger too?
What do you suppose the carving on the stone means?
I don't know. I haven't shown it to anyone.
Why don't you just give it to me?
I don't want your death on my conscience, Georges.
Where did Nico get the stone?
It was sent to her.
From where? Who?
I'm not sure I should tell you.
Oh, you should.
It was something to do with smuggling.
Why didn't Nico take the stone to Oubier?
I don't know. Perhaps she suspected something like this would happen.
If she's been hurt, Andre, I'll break every bone in your body.
No, that's typical of you. Do you think I don't care what happens to Nicole?
It occurred to me that slugs don't have bones to break, but I kept that thought to myself. Tell me about your friend Oubier.
He's more of a professional acquaintance than a friend.
I see. So you don't really know him at all.
No, I don't.
Does Oubier employ a guy from Central America?
Maybe. I don't know.
What do you think this is, Andre?
I don't know.
I'll give you a clue. It's got more backbone than you.
You think you're amusing, don't you?
What can you tell me about this pot?
South or Central American, I'd say. I have a friend who'd be able to tell you more.
Where can I find this guy?
He owns a gallery on the left bank, the Gliese Gallery.
Take a look at this, Andre.
It's a bank statement.
Yeah, Professor Hubier's account. 5 large cash withdrawals in the space of 3 days, all from an automatic teller in Marseille. Suspicious, isn't it?
You're even more crazy than you were before.
See you later.
Goodbye, Georgie.
I've had enough of your games, Kala. Tell me what you've done with my stone.
I thought your business was simply smuggling cocaine, Karzak. Why are you so interested in that stone?
Either you tell me what I want to know, or Pablo here will make you talk.
Okay. Well, I figured someone at the university would be able to help. So I had a word with one of my girlfriends, and she told me her boyfriend was a lecturer. I sent the stone to the Department of Ethnology. You know, I figured it was South American, so... You're not buying this, are you?
That's enough! I don't have time to listen to your mindless prattle. We'll leave you to think it over. Come the morning, you'll be ready to talk.
The ex-gendarme showed no effects from the wine he was pouring down his throat. The man was still looking. That waiter didn't seem to care much about his appearance, or his customers. The man was still looking. Do you miss being a gendarme?
Yes, of course I do. When I wore that uniform, I commanded respect. Not anymore.
Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
Ever heard of Carol Climax, the movie star?
Yes, but I don't care for the kind of movie she's made. It's smut like that which has caused the moral decline of the Western world.
Is it true that Carol Climax was murdered by her husband?
First I heard of it. I thought she just retired.
I'm trying to find my girlfriend. She's been kidnapped.
Kidnapped?
Yeah, it was our first day back together after many months.
That's too bad. My God, that's depressing.
Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
It was a small silver flask from which the man was topping up his glass. Excuse me.
What?
I'd been looking forward to seeing my girl, but she wanted to rush off to see some professor.
I see. And you think she's having an affair with this professor?
Look, forget it. It doesn't matter. Do you miss being a gendarme?
Yes, of course I do. When I wore that uniform, I commanded respect. Not anymore.
You need anything else?
There was nothing I wanted to say to him. Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
I grabbed the flask and was struck by a powerful smell of absinthe, a highly potent and illegal alcoholic drink. It was the flask of absinthe I'd borrowed from the gendarme. Excuse me.
What?
Didn't you try to appeal against your dismissal?
There was no point. It was my word against that of the chief inspector. And he was a close friend of the director of the museum I was supposed to be patrolling.
Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
It was too hot to sit inside the cafe. I'd better think this through. Excuse me.
What?
Which museum was it you were supposed to be patrolling?
The Kroon. It wasn't as if anything important was stolen. Just a rusty old tripod.
The tripod had returned a few weeks later. Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
Excuse me.
What?
I had nothing else I wanted to ask the gendarme. Now I had another lead. I could either go back to Ubier's house or visit the Gliese Gallery. I had a choice of destinations, the cafe at Montfaucon or the art gallery. The Gliese Gallery had style and class, but very few customers. The door led out to the street. I couldn't believe it. The pots were marked at 5,000 francs each. As far as I could tell, the pots were almost identical to the one I'd found in Ubier's house. The Wasteland. Too minimalistic for too much money. The girls were in a world of their own. The Wasteland. Looked like a witch and a headless bust. I had seen better. Rectangles in a desolate landscape, highly cubist. Pots, pots, and more pots, all hugely expensive. He was a pear-shaped guy with a fine display of multiple chins. At that price, I wasn't going anywhere near those pots. The Wasteland. I didn't think much of any of these artifacts. The pots were protected by a glass case. Rectangles. Hi, girls. What's the joke?
あなたはキレテですね。
Okay, fine. If I wanted to be laughed at, there was always Nico. Spheres in a barren waste. Oh, very profound. I could see a pattern emerging in this artist's work. Spheres in a barren waste. Pots, pots, and more pots, all hugely expensive. The glass stopped me from picking up the exhibits. He looked like an older version of Labino, The same supercilious expression, the same disdain in his eyes, and the same damned ponytail. It was a machine for reading credit cards. I had no possible use for a credit card reader. It was a sturdy packing case.
Excuse me, sir.
Uh-huh.
That area is private.
Oh, so I'm not allowed back here?
No, sir.
Are you Mr. Glees, the owner?
Yes, sir. May I help you?
You're English?
These days one prefers to think of oneself as European.
Sure. Whatever you say.
And how precisely may one assist you, sir?
What I really wanted to ask you about was a black stone.
A black stone?
Yeah, it's a Mayan artifact, about as big as my hand.
No, sir. One doesn't get much call for black stones. If it's Mayan artifacts you're interested in, I have some rather exquisite pots.
Yeah, I noticed. I've already got one of those. Who's that guy over there?
That's Mr. Lane, sir, the critic. I'm hoping he'll give the gallery a favorable write-up. One has to be so patient with these critics. Lure them in with the correct bait, watch for a bite, and play them like a fish.
Well, he's certainly drinking like one. Have you heard of Professor Oubier?
Of course. His name is synonymous with Mayan art. A number of these artifacts were supplied by Oubier himself.
Do you believe the story that Oubier murdered his wife?
If it was true, who can blame him? She was an opportunist tramp. Well, that's what I heard.
Have you seen any of Oubier's wife's films?
Only one. Believe me, I was appalled, shocked, disgusted, and repulsed.
Well, you sure got your money's worth. Last time I went to the movies, I wasn't even titillated. I suppose you have an import license for these relics?
Of course. But that's not my problem, sir. The professor arranges all the shipping. We simply collect the items from the docks.
Could you tell me which docks Professor Oubier uses to import the artifacts?
Good God, no. I can't possibly reveal my commercial secrets.
Do you get many Central American Indians in here?
No, sir. This is Paris. Central America is several thousand kilometers southwest of here. Straight across the Atlantic Ocean and turn left. You can't miss it.
Well, as it happens, I saw some Central American Indians this very morning.
Tourists, sir. Paris is full of them at this time of year.
I have some questions I'd like to ask about those pots.
The Mexican collection? Certainly, sir.
Where did you get them from?
Mexico, of course. I think sir will find the price extremely reasonable.
Hey, I'm not interested in buying them.
Oh, I see. Well, in that case, you'll excuse me.
I found this news story referring to a total eclipse of the sun.
Really, sir? Well, fascinating.
I'd like your opinion on this pot.
Interesting. Would sir be interested in selling the article?
That depends. How much would you give me for it?
300? Possible 325.
What? Those other pots are priced at 5,000 francs each.
Yes, but this is clearly the work of an inferior, degenerated culture.
You mean it's English?
Look, why don't you get a second opinion?
From who?
Mr. Lane, the world-renowned art critic and collector.
He's an art critic? I thought there was a carnival in town. I didn't think he'd be interested in that. You're Lane, the critic, aren't you?
Correct. Can't you see I'm busy?
Busy? Doing what?
Appreciating the art. Or depreciating it. I have a reputation to uphold.
I could tell this guy was going to be hard work. Have you heard of Professor Oubier?
Yes, of course.
I was at his house earlier.
If you're going to drop names, you could at least name one worth dropping.
I thought Oubier was a well-respected man.
Why, his last book was nothing but pseudo-intellectual claptrap. The demented ramblings of a drug-dependent has-been.
Would you give me your opinion on this pot, sir?
Yes, very rapuche.
Rapuche?
Hideous.
What the hell do you think you're doing? You smashed my pot.
Certainly, it was not only worthless, it was ugly and offensive.
To you, maybe.
Believe me, I was doing you a favor.
What's the difference between my pot and all those other pots?
Yours is broken.
Why, you smug, pompous sloth.
Sticks and stones, dear boy, sticks and stones.
What's that you're drinking?
I'm not sure, but I have a suspicion it might be urine. Glees can't expect a favorable criticism of his gallery when he serves this muck.
I wasn't going to waste any more breath talking to that pompous blimp. Maybe I could turn the situation to my advantage, and at the same time, get my revenge. A valuable relic of an ancient civilization lay smashed on the floor. The pot had smashed into too many pieces to retrieve. If I wanted to be laughed at, there was always Nico. That slob Lane just smashed my Mayan pot.
Yes, he can be rather impulsive.
Impulsive? The man's a hooligan. I bet if it was one of yours, you'd be more concerned. Lane doesn't think much of your choice of wine.
Lost at nerve. The priest who sold it to me said it was a good year.
I didn't think he'd be interested. The glass was half full of wine. The way that guy was gripping the glass, I'd need a wrench to get away from him. I splashed a little absinthe into the glass and hoped he wouldn't notice the change of color.
Did you put something in my drink?
Yeah, I did. Well, what do you think?
Well, it's certainly an improvement over Glees's wine. In fact, I could grow to like it.
I'd had enough of talking to that slob. The glass now held a potent mixture of wine and absinthe. Allow me. The pot had smashed into... Were those pots very valuable?
The pots are insured, but not the shelving. You've no idea how much that cost me.
Glees wasn't happy, I could tell. He was out for the count. I wasn't going to waste my breath on that drunkard. Fragments of priceless pots lay shattered on the floor. There was nothing worth retrieving from the mess. If I wanted to be I had no possible use for a credit card reader. It was a sturdy packing case. There was nothing in the case but styrofoam packing, but pasted on the side was the remains of a label. It was a sturdy packing. The packing case contained nothing but styrofoam chips. It was a label bearing a company name and logo. Underneath the logo of a flying bird were the words Condor Transglobal Mars. The rest of the label was missing. It was beginning to make sense. Oubier had organized Nico's abduction. Oubier withdrew money from Marseille. Oubier was connected with Transglobal, who shipped their goods from a warehouse in Marseille. That's how the torn Transglobal label had once read. Marseille, not Mars. It wasn't much of a lead, but it was all I had. I set off immediately to catch the evening train. It was almost dawn when I arrived in Marseille. I traced Condor Transglobal to a desolate dockside. It was the label I'd found in the Glees Gallery. A chain-link fence barred the entrance to the docks.
What's the big idea?
I don't know. The dog went berserk for no apparent reason.
He's trained to do that. The idea is to deter any would-be intruder.
Oh, I get it. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just remember, he's a trained attack dog. A killer.
It was a mean-looking guard dog. Here, boy. It was a tall wire mesh fence.
Didn't I tell you to stay away from the fence?
I was nowhere near it. It's that dog. He's crazy.
Hey, mind what you say. He's sensitive to negative criticism.
The gates were fastened with a heavy-duty padlock. Breaking steel padlocks with my bare hands was a feat I'd never mastered. It was a small window through which the guy could watch over the entrance to the docks. The spike held a stack of papers which appeared to be shipping documents. None of them referred to Condor Transglobal. Ouch!
Gotcha! That'll learn you to leave things alone.
The chimney was a metal pipe with a conical hat on top to stop the rain getting in. Ouch! That's hot. There was nothing in the... but pasted... under the... It was Booby. That it wasn't... It was all... I traced... Those steps led to the pier beneath the hut. Bobbing up and down in the oily water was the watchman's discarded beer bottle. The bottle was just out of reach. Nothing was going to get me into that water if I could help it. The opening in the floor led up into the watchman's hut. It was the door which led to the docks on the other side of the fence. A shabby old overcoat hung from a peg near the door. Impaled on a spike were a number of documents. It was the trapdoor which the slob used as a waste chute, straight into the sea. The watchman was big and bulgy, like a sack of potatoes. His flushed and bloated face wore a sleepy, amiable expression. It was a large bucket filled with coal. It was an old iron stove, which heated the hut and the watchman's dinner. Something was bubbling in the watchman's saucepan. It was a packet with a picture of a boxer dog on the front. It was an old blackened kettle. It was a filthy, stained coffee mug. The platform was held up by a hinged bracket. I couldn't figure out what it was for. Maybe it was part of a structure which no longer existed. The guard dog was staring at me with a hungry look in his eyes. Here, boy. My arms weren't long enough to reach the platform. I couldn't reach the coat. I couldn't reach the bucket.
Excuse me? Huh? Who's there?
The steps led back to the dockside.
Do you know what time it is?
No, I don't wear a watch. As my dad used to say, I'm not into time, man.
Well, you're too early.
What time is it anyhow?
The big hand's on the floor. Why aren't you in bed?
I can explain everything.
Never mind, I ain't that interested.
What time do you open the gates?
7.
Do you mind if I hang out here till the docks open?
Please yourself, but you'll have a long wait. It's Sunday, and tomorrow is the start of the national holiday. Everything is closed for a month.
Well, wouldn't you just know it? Does that dog belong to you?
Nah, he comes with the job. I just feed him every now and then.
More then than now, I'd say. What's the dog's name?
20.
It's unusual for a dog.
It's his registration number. Security dog number 20.
Does number 20 have rabies?
Nah, just a bad attitude. Like I said, he's a trained attack dog. They took him when he was a puppy and messed with his head to make him the way he is.
Ever heard of Condor Transglobal?
Sure. They have a warehouse here.
Well, could I take a look?
Not until after the holidays. Come back in a month.
I have to make a delivery to Condor Transglobal.
Where's your rig?
About half a mile down the road.
And you walked here? Jeez, are you some kind of nut?
Nah, it was easy. I just put one foot in front of the other. Are you gonna let me make my delivery?
Not without the paperwork. You get the papers, you make your delivery, and I get a fat backhander.
I was getting nowhere with the story about being a trucker. Do you know what kind of business Condor's involved in?
I'll pay to God today. Their business is none of mine.
I'm looking for a young woman.
At the docks? What kind of woman do you have in mind?
You don't understand. It's my girlfriend I'm trying to find.
Well, I ain't seen her, and you should tell her. The docks ain't no place for a young lady. They're dirty and they're dangerous.
I'm certain my girlfriend was brought here when she was abducted.
What? Your girl was kidnapped?
Yeah. Struck down by an Indian with a poisoned dart.
A poisoned dart, huh?
I could tell he didn't believe me. I have these very exotic panties.
Take them away, you pervert!
Have you ever heard of Professor Oubier?
Me? None of my friends are professors or anything like that.
What's cooking?
Beans. You know a man can live on nothing but beans.
Not this one. Don't you ever get tired of eating beans?
Sure I do. What do you take me for?
And what's the alternative?
Peas. I can't eat them too often, though. They play hell with my digestion.
Have you ever considered changing your diet?
What's wrong with beans and beer?
You need me to tell you? You're pumping out enough methane here to fill a dirigible. This is the dart that the Indian shot at my girlfriend.
Sheesh! That's pretty weird, but I don't see why you'd expect to find her here.
Take a look at this letter.
That's sick. Did you write it?
Oh, no. No, it's a letter from my girlfriend's admirer.
If I was you, I'd smack him in the mouth.
Well, that's not my style, but thanks for the advice.